So I'm going to move straight on. I said in my opening thing this morning, for me the big issue is who pays for the change, the cost of change. Well, this talk is called The Price of Change, Finding the Money for Action. Our speaker is a chartered accountant at EQUANS, responsible for enabling net zero solutions for their clients. She's Energy and Carbon Solutions Director. Please welcome Kirti Rudra.
The price of change, so finding the money for action on sustainability. And the way I'm going to approach this is firstly to describe what we've observed that works well in terms of how you plan for change, and then go on around how you structure the solutions through financing and looking at how we can develop those further. Before I start, who's EQUANS? EQUANS is NG. NG simplified its operating model last year in July to create a services-led entity which contains 74,000 experts across the world in 17 countries. We continue to focus on the energy transition, digital transition and industrial transition. In the UK, nothing's changed. We're still delivering the services that we have done for years. Even last week, when I was asked around net zero, one of the things that the clients that I work with ask me, they go, net zero, climate positive, carbon negative, all of these terms, what do they mean? Is net zero the same as climate positive? Is it the same as carbon negative? So just a brief recap to help. So carbon negative is essentially reducing more emissions than you actually put out in the atmosphere. Zero carbon is creating a balance with no offsetting at all. Carbon neutrality reduces your emissions alongside offsetting strategies. Net zero, or the epitome as it is now, is reducing your carbon emissions through physical reduction measures, and only where that is not possible, you use offsetting measures. The Science Based Targets Initiative introduced the net zero standard recently, which focuses on more zero and less net. How much is it going to cost us? £1.4 trillion. That's approximately, depending on the UK population stat that you have at the time, £15,000 per person, or £500 a year for 30 years. This is to transform our surface infrastructure, our energy supply, our roads, manufacturing, and our industry. It will produce savings and create still a net cost of £0.4 trillion. This is not dissimilar to what we have as an organisation have to face. Delivering net zero strategies is expensive. It's not just going to be offset by the savings. There is a cost involved. And therefore, it's important to consider what a net zero world should look like. On the right, on the left, the World Economic Forum created the nirvana of what a net zero world would look like. Zero carbon mobility. Mobility as a service where you're sharing your rides. Circular economy, where you have no landfill. Everything's recycled, reused. Abundant clean energy, sustainable natural ecosystems. Energy efficient buildings. That's nirvana. But you can't just focus on net zero and carbon reduction. You can't look at that in isolation. Jeremy already mentioned the fact that carbon tunnel vision is now a coined term. Jan Konitsko, and this image I love, highlights the importance of doing sustainable transitions and ensuring that carbon emissions is not your whole focus. You have to bring society with you. You have to bring your partners with you. And focusing on just carbon reduction, it's expensive, as we've seen. So how do you make sure it's sustainable? Firstly, look at defining your ambition. If I was to ask for a show of hands, How many of you have installed or have bamboo toilet paper in your homes? Good. How many of you drive an electric car? How many of you have installed heat pumps? I won't ask for the reasons why or why not, but I imagine some of them would be, I didn't know what bamboo toilet paper was. Electric cars, I've got to plan my journey. Heat pumps, too expensive, too complicated. But it's these challenges that we faced every day when we're building roadmaps or net zero strategies. And this is the general feeling amongst the organisations at all levels of the stakeholders that we can't ignore. There's no point saying you're going to become net zero tomorrow and you lose all the employee engagement, or you lose your supply chain because the small medium enterprises can't keep up. There's no point setting a long-term strategy to achieve net zero by not making incremental changes today. So taking into account the concerns that you have just to transform your individual net zero carbon footprint and applying those principles in an organisation is key. Our approach to net zero, and what we've actually observed works quite well, is to follow essentially 3 steps built on the PAS 2060 methodology. Calculate your carbon footprint. Conduct an energy audit that's aligned to your asset verification audits that you do for FM. Develop a net zero roadmap, a shopping list of projects that can get you there. Fully cost those that you prioritise, so create business plans for them, and then deliver these and implement them. I won't go into this too much detail other than scopes 1 and 2 are what you can control. Why not today start thinking about your scope 3 and ask your supply chain to produce their scopes 1 and 2. This will help quantify the carbon footprint that we have. In delivering your energy audit, consider reduction, so energy efficiency measures or behavioural change. Consider asset conversion, green power. Consider how complicated it is to transform your heating systems, and then look at offsetting. All of these will produce a net zero strategy for you. So once you've conducted your energy audit and you have all of these opportunities available to you, how do you start working through that puzzle? What we advocate and what we've seen works well is, while you're thinking about how this works, do something today. Behavioural change. You can train your employees. You can produce guidance and show how much carbon you're producing through dashboards and insight guides. You can deliver the quick wins at zero cost. Education doesn't cost a lot. Then consider energy efficiency. Typically, what we found is energy efficiency measures, especially in industry, is often overlooked for transformational change into low carbon technology. So deliver those quick wins now, and then consider the more complex projects that requires asset infrastructure through renewables. Once you've created that hierarchy or prioritisation pyramid of the options that you want for decarbonisation today, build these into a business plan. Put these together into an investment grade proposal that creates your timeline. Going back to the phasing of net zero projects, we've discussed behavioural change and energy efficiency. We've moved to removing fossil fuels in heating, upgrading your heating systems, and assessing the complexity of network constraints, as well as installing renewable generation. So that is just phasing of the projects, considering the complexity to install them. Now, how do you structure this in terms of the most optimum financing solution? The way I approach this is through a commercial lens. So I consider, with my clients, what type of control are they looking to have? Do they want to retain as much control as possible? So they want to own the asset. They want to fund it entirely. They don't really care about the performance obligation because they want to maintain it in-house. That is a retained control model. For that, structuring the projects that you've identified through design, build, operate contracts are most effective. Or is more trusted control required? That is, asset ownership is not important. As long as the room is heated and comfortable, that is what's key. A guarantee is required because funding is required. If financing is available, if grant financing is available, then an energy performance guarantee is not needed. If you've got finance available to spend, you don't need to be paying for a savings risk premium on a guaranteed energy saving. Consider whether the balance sheet's important. So do you want this structured on your balance sheet so that this will affect your gearing ratio and what you can borrow going forwards? Or is that not important? All of these factors cost money and adversely affect the business case. Consider also the energy procurement. Trusted control modules, like as a service for instance, can couple all of the energy procurement and have 100% managed service. This takes out the complexity and the price volatility that you can manage with an expert rather than yourselves. This is where the financing options that we find work best once you've identified the level of risk that you're willing to transfer. There are also bespoke options. There's a lot of grant funding available through the Public Sector Decarbonisation Scheme and PSDS, the Industrial Emissions Transformation Fund also. And third-party finance can go alongside these options to produce bespoke solutions for your needs. Once you've developed your structuring options and you have your proposal and your business case, the implementation of projects needs to consider the continuous cycle of improvement through policy, measurement, and compliance and reporting. Finally, just to bring you back full circle, net zero is fundamental, however, shouldn't be overlooked with regard to employee engagement, training and development, social value, flexibility, and the overall transition.